It's the greatest movie ever in the history of movies, and Alonso and I are going to talk about it right now. I had not seen this movie prior to this past weekend. Alonso and I got to hang out and see it together at the Arrow, which was a treat. But this past Sight and Sound poll, it was picked the best movie ever, unseating longtime greats like Citizen Kane and Vertigo. So, Alonso, tell us about Jeanne Dielman.
Yes, or to give the full title, Jeanne Dielman, 23 Quai du Commerce, 1080 Bruxelles. The great Delphine Seyrig plays Jeanne Dielman. She is a widow and a housewife raising her 15-year-old son. And the movie takes us through 3 days in her life. Her days include, as we find out right away, sex work, in which gentlemen come over. She, accommodates, they leave. She puts the money in the soup tureen, and then, she finishes dinner for her son. He goes to bed. She polishes the shoes. There's a very delineated routine, and this is a movie that is 3.5 hours long. So when I say there's a delineated routine, there is a delineated routine
until there isn't.
Yes, exactly. And there needs to be one, because when she gets off of the program, that's when we know something is amiss and something bad is going to happen. But this is a movie, when we saw it at the Arrow, the cinematographer introduced it, and she talked about how it was sort of originally looked at as this landmark of feminist cinema, which it is, because it is about, she is intentionally showing you things that movies don't usually show you. Movies show you like everything that you need to know about like war or, crime or murder or a heist or whatever. But like the making of the dinner and the washing up and the tidying up and the putting things away and the scrubbing of the tub is never in movies. And it certainly wasn't in 1973 when this came out. Or 75 rather. And so that is what you're being immersed into. But also because that she is so precise and that the lid always goes back on the tureen and the light gets turned out in the room and the window gets closed. When she starts not doing that, that's our cue to, and there's no score. There's no like, string section telling you. Because you've been paying attention.
And there's also totally static camera work.
Yes.
It's not like it ever zooms in on anything or like pans over something to show you. Chantal Akerman has total faith in you that you're going to sit and watch this static frame.
Yes.
And you're going to like
shots.
pay attention to all the things that are going on in it. So like when she puts on her house coat or her robe or her coat to go outside, which are all in the exact same shade of ice blue, like on that third day when she misses the second button on her robe, the woman sitting 2 seats down from us who was like loudly munching her popcorn goes, "Oh, she missed a button." Like said it out loud. And it's almost like a horror film. It's almost like, girl, don't go in that hallway, right? Don't go in the basement. Like, she forgot to put the lid back on. Like,
exactly. She didn't turn the light out in the other room. God.
She must have, Jeanne Dielman, like the lowest energy bills, because she's so meticulous about turning off the light in every room. But then you see in the few glimpses that she gives us into who she was before this, when she talks to her son.
Yes.
Like, she is a product of World War II. And so it's clear that like all of these, the way she runs her errands, the way she like will meticulously take a piece of like wrapping paper and like smooth it and fold it and put it back in the drawer to reuse it, the way she turns off all the lights, the way she'll run all over town to find the right button for her son's coat rather than just like buy a whole bunch of buttons and redo them. Like she's frugal and she's pragmatic. And so when you start to see the slightest like cracks, it's startling,
Yeah. So this is this was a film for me that there were a couple, I had a handful of films that I felt like if I'm going to ever see these, I have to see them on the big screen. Last year, Marienbad was one. This was one. Kurosawa's Ron was one. I still want to see the Sergei Bondarchuk 8-hour War and Peace on the big screen. I may just break down and watch it on Criterion Channel one of these days. But I saw this movie projected finally years ago at the LA County Museum of Art at the wonderful Big Theater, which in all their infinite wisdom they tore down. And I'm so glad that I did. I'm so glad that I waited, that I didn't try and watch this like on on tape or on disc at home, because you really just, it is one, when I talk about, there are certain movies that you have to sort of meet it at like what its pace is, not what you're expecting it to be. And this is a movie that very much you have to kind of like almost slow your breathing, you know, because you are watching this stuff that you don't normally see in movies, these very quotidian household tasks, and the precision with which she does them and what it tells you about who this woman is and what her life is like and what her priorities are and where her energies go. Yeah, I think it's really just so haunting and so effective. So, I mean, were you into it? Did you?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it is literally the definition of show, don't tell, right? Like just the way she makes the meatloaf. Yeah. The way she makes the veal cutlets and the fact that she like saves whatever egg is left and puts it in the refrigerator says so much about her and her need for control and her need for precision to keep the truth of her life and the truth of who she is at bay. And so I was down for it. Part of it is that Delphine Seyrig is just stunningly beautiful. Yeah. Has fantastic hair. And just to, as you say, if you are paying attention, if you do meet it, and then you are in a position to recognize the very subtle shift. Also, I'm really detail oriented, like in ways that drive my son mad. Cause like I'll notice that he didn't put something back where he said he was going to, and then he'll lie about it. And I'll go, dude, but it's right there. Things like that. It's the OCD Virgo in me loved this. And I think that Jeanne Dielman lived at a time where something like obsessive compulsive disorder wasn't being diagnosed. Sure. Because clearly she has it, you know? Yeah. But also you recognize like this is the way that she maintains her daily survival is by being in absolute control of the slightest things. So I wonder what it is though. What do you think it is that finally sets her off? Because we should go into spoilers here. Yeah, now.
We're going to spoilers for a 50-year-old movie. So just FYI, stop watching now if you don't want to know.
What sets her off finally?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, the actual homicide at the end is spurred by the fact that she has an orgasm. You know, which I think
is that what you think she has as an orgasm?
I think so.
I think she's struggling against him for a while, like she's unhappy being beneath him.
No, I think again, art is interpretive. I thought she's having an orgasm, but doesn't want to be. Like that act is breaking into the facade that she has, and that's what sets her off. But it all starts the day before with the same guy, because he says, "See you on Thursday." And
I think it's three different men.
I think the last guy is also the second guy, because it's Wednesday and he says, "See you on Thursday." Thursday's the next day. Okay. And so I think maybe she came close during that one, and that already sort of like disturbed her, because like the sex work was a thing that she does to make money, but that she doesn't have to feel anything about, and she doesn't have to respond to or participate in a way. But if she does start feeling something, then that's what sets her off. And I think it's after he leaves is when she starts, like, that's when she puts the money in the tureen and doesn't put the lid back on. Yeah. So I don't know. That's just my interpretation.
That's a really good one.
I could be wrong. But really anyway, but getting back to what the cinematographer was saying about how like this is a feminist film, but it's not just a feminist film. Like, I could absolutely see you making this movie about any number of people whose lives are reduced to this sort of daily kind of clockwork drudgery, whether it's like their jobs or their child rearing, or like just like people I know who, like the gays in West Hollywood who go to the gym like day in, day out, who get those little meals delivered to them in the little tinfoil boxes with the cardboard lid, and it's all like just some chicken breast with no skin and like some blanched broccoli. Like I think a lot of people lead these lives of quiet desperation, and you could put them in a movie and make them just feel so repetitive and so numbing, you know. What do you think about the fact that this topped the Sight and Sound list?
I think it's a reflection of a more diversified I don't want to call it clientele, but like
survey pool.
Yeah, group of voters, just like the Oscars have gotten younger and more diverse and hipper. I don't know if this would be my pick per se. As we talked about when this first came out, this announcement first came out of the Sight and Sound results, like how much of it is this matters in terms of all of cinema and how much of it is like, I just really love The Big Lebowski and want to vote for it. I don't know how many people voted for this because they truly love it or because they think it's important.
I think the idea of a greatest movie of all time is on its face kind of absurd. But I think if we're going to talk about films that radically changed cinema, that represented something new and different in cinema, and that whose influence is still felt, you could do worse than starting with the only four films have ever topped this list: Bicycle Thieves, Citizen Kane, Vertigo, and now Jeanne Dielman. And I would say, whether or not you think Jeanne Dielman is the greatest film ever made, it absolutely belongs on that short list with those other three films as being really essential works in the history of world cinema.
Oh, yeah. I totally love the precision of it and the minimalism of it and her ability to convey so much in such a simple way and just trusting us to take it all in and to be with her for every need of the meatloaf, you know, and not to zone out and not to check our phone now, you know.
Oh, God. When she's peeling the potatoes, I got scared because, like, I couldn't remember if anything happened. Like, she's going to stab herself. Like, she was just, like, so, you know. Yeah.
No, it definitely gets more tense if you have been allowing yourself to get immersed in it and play along. Yeah, like, I love the precision of the colors in it, you know, in terms of her hair and the coats and
the wall behind her.
Yeah. And just, and her son is such a surly little prick. Like he doesn't even bring the plate up to there's a lot that he needs to do to help. He won't bring his plate out to the kitchen.
Yeah. Show this movie to Nick and be like, don't make mommy stab somebody. Like, help
I appreciated how that my kid will like make his bed and, you know, put his jammies in the hamper and like bring his breakfast dishes up to the sink. He at least does that much.
Fair enough.
But she's not asking him for that.
Well, exactly. It would never occur to her. Did you remember the end of Mrs. America?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. So I did realize that was an homage, and that was, as you say, the reverberations that we still feel throughout the culture from this film. Yeah, that for sure. But I didn't know she was going to kill somebody. I knew something bad was going to happen when she left the scissors on the dresser.
Right.
But I didn't think she was going to do that. And I love the fact that we don't see it. We see the reflection of it.
Yeah.
So there's still a sense of a sense of emotional detachment, even though it's a shocking act that we're seeing. Well,
and again, like, you know, she has sex 3 times, whether with 2 men or 3, I guess we can debate, but we only see that last one. Like the first 2, it is completely off screen. It's like, other movies are going to show you that. I'm here to show you how she makes the potatoes.
and I'm here to not even show you, but let you hear her hanging up the coat in the hallway closet
with the hangers,
the clang of the hanger. Anyway,
and then she hangs her son's coat the same way.
Right. She's doing everything for everyone else and nothing for herself. And that seems to be by design, because if she were to nourish herself in some way, she would acknowledge her own vulnerabilities, her own fears, her own desires. And that's just not something she can do.
Exactly.
Anyway, do we give it a number? Do we dare?
I'm saying 10. This is one of the greatest films ever made. People should see it, and people should know what they're getting into and not just be like, this is boring. Nothing happens. Like, everything is happening if you meet it halfway. Yes. I'll say 10 too, because it is totally singular. And I was so into it the whole time, even though I was exhausted. If you're going to watch it at home, close the curtains, turn off all the other screens, just be there with it. No phones. Don't do your own chores while Jeanne Dielman is doing hers. Yes, this is not a sing-along.